Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Local Liberty. This is Brian and Shane. We are continuing the conversation in our community about individual freedom. The topic for today is compassion versus coercion. Two words that begin with C, have a similar number of syllables, and are often confused. Where I'd like to start is first just explaining how nobody has a monopoly on compassion. In other words, there's no one particular way to be a compassionate person. There's no one particular way to be kind or caring. There's no one particular way to take care of others in need. So that's really important to keep in mind when you compare compassion to coercion, because what you have is what you have to be careful of is saying, okay, I think that this particular problem needs to be solved, and I think it should be solved in this way. And when you marry your desire to help others particularly with the state, you're introducing nothing that's involved with the government that doesn't involve an element of coercion. So, as an example, you may have particular ideas on how the poor can be best helped, and your ideas may include direct sort of immediate going to help in the here and the now, and others may be interested in helping poor people on the long term, and both are valid ways to be compassionate. So just be careful about always reminding yourself and others that there is no such thing as a monopoly on compassion. And then getting into sort of contrasting the two, we have to think about the difference between action versus thought. To think about helping somebody is not the same thing as actually helping them. To say, oh, I feel bad about this, but not doing anything about it is not the same, obviously. So compassion is what takes form. You know, the old saying, actions speak louder than words. This holds true on the conversation of compassion as it holds true on anything else. So if you are...
And I should point out right here, there might be a little confusion. Words can be actions, but you bitching to your friend in the car about something over and over again isn't really doing much. But maybe you attending a protest, maybe you speaking out online, maybe you doing a local TV show like we're trying to do, is getting the word out. It's getting a message out. It's the way you speak and how you get your message out. Just complaining privately about something, that's not helping. That's not solving a problem. That's not bringing awareness to an issue. That's not doing anything. You can equate that with just thinking about it, essentially.
Right. Yep. And then, sort of to segue that into the next part is when you say you think about helping somebody, but then you don't actually help them yourself. How we often work that out in our own mind is we say, oh, I'm going to help via a middleman, and that middleman is almost always the government. And you say, okay, instead of helping my neighbor, I'm just gonna happily pay my tax bill, and then some other middleman is the one that's gonna take care of everything and make everybody happy. And that whatever else that other middleman does, well, hey, I paid my money, I'm absolved, I'm good to go. So I'm gonna say, real compassion. It's like the story. The Good Samaritan didn't call up the local town and say, hey, somebody needs help over here. He helped them themselves. So,
right. If you say I'm paying my taxes, something you're forced to do, I don't consider that compassionate. If I'm forced to give a dollar bill I have to some guy in the street, that's not compassionate. Someone just forced me to do something. Whereas if I willingly give it up, if I willingly give my own time to a cause, that actually is compassionate. Yep. Being forced into doing something to help somebody, that's not compassionate.
Right. And if you are, even if you're happily volunteering every single penny that you pay out in taxes, it's still you're working through a middleman versus just putting your own time and energy. And
well, you could work through a middleman. You could work through an organization, charitable
Right, but-
organizations,
yeah,
and other groups.
You're right, but this is a particular kind of middleman known as the state has some very special properties, which we've gone into great length talking about it elsewhere.
Right.
But
Those other charities and 501c3s usually can't just walk into your house and take stuff from you.
usually not. Okay, so then to the most important part about this is sort of the ends versus means discussion of compassion and coercion. If your version of compassion involves directly harming another person, then it's clear that people are going to say, okay, that's not real compassion. If you say, my neighbor's house just burnt down, and I'm going to go into my neighbor on the other side and steal all the stuff from their house and give it to my neighbor that just had their house burned down. Nobody's going to say, hey, good job, pat you on the back for that. But this is sort of what, this sort of ties back into, if your version of compassion is calling up DCF and having a family ripped apart to take care of whatever problem you may have seen, I don't see that as compassion in any way. I see that as blatant, heinous coercion. So think about, if your ends are helping somebody, but your means are hurting them, or hurting somebody else, or hurting all of us, I don't consider that compassion at all.
Forcing people, they even help themselves. Like we talked about this previously about this new spin on the drug war. Oh, they're not criminals. They're people with medical problems. So we're gonna force them into rehabilitation. We're gonna force them. We're gonna label them as addicts, and we're gonna put them somewhere. We're giving them medical help. The force is the problem here. That you're not helping them. You're forcing them into a situation. You have no right to do that. Just because you think you're helping them, that doesn't give you that right.
Right, and the difference.
That's not compassionate.
Right, the key word, as opposed to coercion, is persuasion. If you know somebody that has a severe addiction problem, by all means, try to help them. Try to persuade them. Say, hey, this really isn't in your own best interest. You are, and you're probably not telling them anything they don't already know, but maybe they just need to hear it from somebody else. But the point is, persuasion versus coercion. That is a form of legitimate compassion. So this is a really important topic that sort of ties into so many different levels of how our society functions, because so much of our society is intertwined with the coercive nature of the state that we get these things really confused. But
right, it's always there, ominously in the background.
Yep.
We're from the government and we're here to help. Right? It's always there. It's always in the background.
But just try to, and this sort of ties back into the an economics lesson that we've talked about before. It's the seen versus the unseen. Government likes to operate exclusively on the seen. In other words, we can say, okay, I built housing for the homeless that it cost $10 million, and now we're housing 100 homeless people, and yeah, that's great. The unseen is, where did that $10 million come from? What did it? Who was it taken from? What did those people do that now don't have that money? What beautiful, compassionate acts are they prevented from doing because of that money that was taken from them? So it's difficult to untangle this, but
I should interject right now that even if you agree with that action, even if you think, well, this was good, we helped those homeless people, I'm sympathetic. Just that hypothetical situation you brought up, I'm sympathetic to that idea. But you need to be aware of what's actually happening. Don't forget about what's actually occurring, what actually happens if you don't pay your taxes. If you decide to not participate in the system, like, no thank you, I'm just going to go live on my farm here, I'm cool. What will actually eventually happen is men with guns will come to your door and take you away.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a great way to end this segment. I want to talk about what happens when you don't pay your taxes. A man by the name of Irwin Schiff, we've linked to a little bit of his work previously on the show. His son is actually lives in Connecticut and ran for Senate a few years ago, the name of Peter Schiff. Irwin Schiff wrote that cartoon that we linked to about where how an economy grows, and it talked about the very basics of saving and capitalism. A great, we'll link to it again, great little piece of work. But Irwin Schiff has been a long-time tax protester, and basically he believes that taxes are voluntary, and people only are paying them because they're tricked into paying them. And there's lots of constitutional scholars and legal scholars that think that he's wrong, but the ones that count that think that he's wrong is the federal government. And he was thrown into prison at the age of 78, given a 13-year sentence. That was roughly 10 years or so ago, I think. And he just died on Friday in prison at the age of 88 or something, 89 years old, blind, barely able to breathe, chained to a hospital bed for the crime of saying, nope, I don't want to pay you this money anymore. And that's what happens when you don't pay your taxes. You will get thrown in jail. And I think his case boiled down to this simple absurdity that he claimed that taxes were voluntary, and the government said, yep, they're voluntary, and if you don't volunteer, we're going to throw you in jail.
I should interject right now. Even if you think that gentleman was in the wrong, what's his name again?
Irwin Schiff.
Irwin Schiff. Even if you think Irwin Schiff broke the law, he did something wrong, he has an obligation to pay his taxes. We as human beings should have compassion for our fellow human beings and not throw the guy in jail and have him die in a hospital bed chained to it. That is an absurdity. What kind of proportionality is that? Did this heinous crime deserve this brutal end? I'm stunned by, even if you agree with the idea of taxation, that he did something wrong, that this was the appropriate punishment, this was proportional to his crime, is just absurd.
Yep. That's a good question, and that's a good place to close. Anything else, Shane?
That's it.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. This has been Brian and Shane from Local Liberty. You can check us out on Facebook, Local Liberty, YouTube Local Liberty.
Like, comment, subscribe, and share.
That's right, and localliberty.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys soon.